Everyone thinks they know Michael Jordan's secret to success. 6 NBA championships, legendary work ethic, smart business deals with Nike that made him a billionaire. But they're all wrong. The real secret isn't what Jordan does on the basketball court or in the boardroom. It's what he's been doing every single morning at 4:30 a.m. for the past 33 years. Something so private, so unexpected that even his closest friends don't know about it. It's not meditation. It's not working out. It's not studying game film or reading business reports. What Jordan does every morning at 4:30 a.m. accidentally created a nationwide network that has helped over 100,000 people. It taught him how real communities work, which made him billions in smart investments. And it all started with one simple habit that his father taught him in 1991. The habit is so strange that when people find out, they can't believe the greatest basketball player in history has been doing this every day for 3 decades, never missing, not once. Until now, only a handful of people knew the truth. But one of them is dying, and she's finally ready to reveal the secret that could change how the world thinks about success, kindness, and what it really means to be great. Marcus Chen stared at his phone screen, reading the text message for the 5th time. The number was blocked, but the words made his heart race. I know Michael Jordan's real morning secret, the one that made him a billionaire. Meet me at Sunrise Diner in Wilmington, NC tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone, ask for Elena. Marcus set his phone down on his cramped ESPN desk and rubbed his tired eyes. After 5 years of covering sports stories, he'd learned to ignore most anonymous tips. Crazy fans always claim to have inside information about famous athletes, but something about this message felt different. He picked up his phone again and Googled Michael Jordan morning routine. The usual articles popped up. Stories about Jordan waking up early for practice, pictures of him working out before dawn. Everyone knew Michael was disciplined about his schedule, but a secret morning routine that made him a billionaire? That sounded like nonsense. Marcus was 28 and hungry for the story that would change his career. He'd been stuck writing small pieces about college basketball and minor league baseball. His editor, Sarah Kim, barely noticed his work anymore. He needed something big, something that would get him noticed by the major sports networks. His phone buzzed again. Same blocked number. He does something at 4:30 a.m. that nobody knows about. Something he's done since 1991. I was there. I saw it happen hundreds of times. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. 1991 was Jordan's first championship year. What if this wasn't just another crazy fan story? What if someone really did know something? He looked around the busy ESPN newsroom. Other reporters were typing away at their computers, chasing their own stories. None of them were getting mysterious text messages about Michael Jordan's secret billions. Marcus made a decision. He grabbed his laptop bag and headed for Sarah's office. I need to take a personal day tomorrow, he said, standing in her doorway. Sarah looked up from her computer screen. For what? Following up on a lead. Could be nothing, but I want to check it out. She shrugged. Fine, but I need that Duke basketball piece by Friday. Marcus nodded and headed home to pack. 3 hours later, he was driving south on I-95 toward North Carolina. The February air was cold, but he kept his windows cracked open to stay alert. His mind raced with questions. Who was Elena? How did she know Jordan? And what could he possibly do at 4:30 in the morning that made him billions of dollars? Marcus had covered enough Michael Jordan stories to know the basics. 6 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls, legendary competitiveness, smart business deals with Nike and other companies. But most of Jordan's wealth came from his Air Jordan brand and team ownership. Nothing mysterious about that. The drive to Wilmington took 6 hours. Marcus found a cheap motel and tried to sleep, but his mind wouldn't quiet down. He kept thinking about the text messages. The specific time, 4:30 a.m. The specific year, 1991. Someone who claimed to be there and see it happen. The next morning, Marcus drove through downtown Wilmington, looking for Sunrise Diner. The small coastal city was pretty, with old brick buildings and tree-lined streets. This was Jordan's hometown. He'd grown up here before becoming famous. Sunrise Diner was a small place with yellow walls and red booths. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the air. Marcus arrived at exactly 2 p.m. and told the waitress he was looking for Elena. Back corner booth, she said, pointing toward a woman sitting alone. Elena Rodriguez looked to be in her late 60s. She had gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and wore a simple blue sweater. Her brown eyes were sharp and alert. But Marcus noticed her hands shook slightly as she lifted her coffee cup. "You're the reporter," she said as Marcus sat down across from her. "Marcus Chen, ESPN. You sent me the messages." Elena nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about this for months, whether to tell someone or take it to my grave." Marcus pulled out his phone to record, but Elena held up a hand. "No recording. Not yet. First, I need to know you'll treat this story with respect. Michael Jordan is a good man. What I'm going to tell you, it's not gossip. It's something beautiful." Marcus put his phone away. "Okay, tell me what you know." Elena took a sip of coffee and looked out the window. "I worked as a cleaning lady for 40 years. Hotels, offices, private homes, rich people's houses mostly. I cleaned for a lot of famous folks." She paused and looked back at Marcus. "Including Michael Jordan. His house in Chicago during the championship years. His place here in Wilmington when he visited family. I saw things." "What kind of things?" "Every morning at exactly 4:30 a.m., Michael would get up and go to his study, not to read playbooks or watch game film. He had a small wooden desk by the window. He would sit there for exactly 1 hour and do something that would surprise you." Marcus leaned forward. "What did he do?" Elena's eyes grew distant, remembering. "He wrote letters. By hand. Personal letters to people. But not to other famous people or business partners. These were different." "Different how?" "He wrote to ordinary folks. People who were struggling. Single mothers. Families who lost their jobs. Kids who were sick. People who needed hope." Marcus frowned. "How do you know what was in the letters?" "Because he left them on his desk to dry. The ink, you know. I would dust around them while he showered and got ready for practice. I couldn't help but see a few words here and there." Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a small piece of paper. "I kept this. I probably shouldn't have, but I did." She handed Marcus what looked like a rough draft of a letter, written in blue ink on plain white paper. "Dear friend, I heard about your situation through someone who cares about you. I know things seem hard right now, but I want you to know that someone believes in you. Enclosed is a small gift to help with whatever you need most. Keep working toward your dreams. Better days are coming. A friend who believes in you." Marcus stared at the paper. "Jordan wrote this?" "That's his handwriting. I saw him write hundreds of letters just like it over the years. Always the same time. Always the same careful attention. Always signed the same way. But why? Why would he do this?" Elena smiled sadly. "That's what I wondered for years, until I started putting pieces together. I worked for other people who knew Michael. I heard stories. I saw what happened to some of the people who got those letters." She leaned across the table, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Marcus, those letters didn't just help individual people. They created something bigger, something that connected people across the country. Something that eventually made Michael Jordan understand how real business works, how real communities grow." Marcus felt his reporter instincts tingling. "What do you mean?" Elena glanced around the diner, then back at Marcus. "I'm dying," she said quietly. "Cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months. I kept quiet all these years because I signed agreements, but I want the truth to come out before I'm gone." She reached into her purse again and pulled out a folded napkin with 3 names written on it. "If you really want to understand Michael Jordan's billion-dollar secret, you need to talk to these people. Dr. Robert Kim in Chicago. Isabella Santos in Charlotte. Tommy Mitchell right here in Wilmington. They were part of what Michael created, even though he didn't know it at the time." Marcus took the napkin, his mind racing with questions. Elena stood up slowly, leaving money on the table for her coffee. "What you think you know about greatness," she whispered, her eyes filled with something that looked like wonder, "is just the surface. Michael's real secret, it saved more than just his career." She walked toward the door, then turned back one more time. "And Marcus, he still does it. Every single morning at 4:30 a.m. For 33 years now. Never missed a day. Not once." The door chimed as Elena left, and Marcus sat alone in the booth, staring at the napkin with 3 names and the draft letter in Jordan's handwriting. He had no idea that he was about to uncover the most amazing story of his career. Marcus sat in the diner for another 20 minutes, staring at the napkin with the 3 names. His hands were shaking slightly as he held the draft letter Elena had given him. The handwriting looked real. The paper felt old. But could this really be from Michael Jordan? He pulled out his phone and called his editor, Sarah. "I need another day," he said when she answered. "Marcus, what's going on? You said this was just checking out a lead." "It's bigger than I thought. I need to fly to Chicago." Sarah sighed. "This better be worth it. And you're paying for the flight yourself if it turns out to be nothing." Marcus was already walking to his rental car. "It's worth it." 3 hours later, he was on a plane to Chicago. During the flight, he researched Dr. Robert Kim online. The man had been a sports psychologist in Chicago during the 1990s. His website showed he was now retired but still lived in the city. There were a few articles about his work with professional athletes, but nothing that mentioned Jordan specifically. Marcus found Dr. Kim's phone number and called as soon as he landed at O'Hare Airport. "Dr. Kim? This is Marcus Chen from ESPN. I'm working on a story about community service and mentorship. I was told you might have worked with Michael Jordan in the past?" There was a long pause on the phone. "Who told you to call me?" Dr. Kim's voice was careful. "A woman named Elena Rodriguez. She said you might be able to help me understand something about Jordan's morning routine." Another pause. "Where are you right now?" "Just landed in Chicago. Meet me at Lou Mitchell's restaurant on Jackson Boulevard in an hour. Come alone." The line went dead. Lou Mitchell's was a classic Chicago diner with black and white checkered floors and red leather booths. Marcus found Dr. Kim sitting near the back, a small Asian man with gray hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked to be in his late 70s but sat straight and alert. "You're the reporter," Dr. Kim said as Marcus approached. "Yes, sir. Thank you for meeting with me." Dr. Kim studied Marcus for a moment. "Elena called me this morning. She said she finally decided to talk. She's dying, you know." Marcus nodded and sat down across from Dr. Kim. She was a good woman. Honest. Hardworking. She saw things that she was never supposed to talk about. Dr. Kim picked up his coffee cup with both hands. "What exactly did she tell you?" Marcus pulled out the draft letter. "She said Jordan wrote personal letters to strangers every morning at 4:30 a.m., starting in 1991. Dr. Kim looked at the paper and nodded slowly. "That's his handwriting. I recognize it." "So it's true?" "Oh, it's true. But Elena only saw the surface of what Michael was doing." Dr. Kim leaned back in his booth. "I was there when it started. I was the one who suggested he begin writing them." Marcus felt his heart speed up. "You were Jordan's sports psychologist." "Not exactly. Michael came to see me, but not for the reasons you might think. He didn't need help with performance anxiety or mental training. The man's competitive fire was stronger than anyone I'd ever met." Dr. Kim paused as the waitress refilled their coffee cups. "Michael came to me in early 1991 because he was struggling with something different. Success guilt, I guess you could call it. He was making more money than he'd ever imagined, becoming famous worldwide, but he felt disconnected from regular people." Success guilt. He grew up in a middle-class family here in Wilmington. His parents taught him to work hard and help others, but suddenly he was rich and famous, living in a completely different world. He felt like he was losing touch with the values his father taught him. Dr. Kim smiled, remembering. "James Jordan was a wise man. He visited my office with Michael a few times. He told his son, 'Greatness isn't what you achieve, son. It's what you give back when nobody's watching.'" Marcus was taking notes as fast as he could write. "So I suggested Michael find a way to give back that felt personal and meaningful. Not just writing checks to charities, but actually connecting with individual people who needed encouragement." The morning letters. "Exactly. We decided he would get up early, before basketball consumed his day, and spend 1 hour writing to people. The 4:30 a.m. time was Michael's idea. He said that was when the world was quiet and he could think clearly." Dr. Kim reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It showed a younger Michael Jordan sitting at a small wooden desk, writing by lamplight. The Bulls logo was visible on the wall behind him. "I took this picture in 1993. Michael had asked the Bulls facility manager to give him access to a quiet room every morning before practice. The team thought he was doing meditation or extra mental preparation." Marcus stared at the photo. How did he choose who to write to? That was the beautiful part. Michael didn't want to write to famous people or business contacts. He wanted to help ordinary folks who were facing real struggles. He got names from social workers, teachers, pastors, community organizers, people who knew families in need. And he sent money with the letters? Dr. Kim nodded. Usually, not huge amounts, maybe $50 or $100. Sometimes more if the situation was really desperate. But the money wasn't the most important part. What was? The hope. Michael understood that when you're struggling, sometimes just knowing that someone believes in you can change everything. These weren't form letters. He spent time on each one, thinking about what that specific person might need to hear. Marcus looked at the photograph again. Jordan looked focused and peaceful, not like the fierce competitor everyone saw on the basketball court. How long did he keep this up? Dr. Kim's expression grew more serious. That's where the story gets complicated. Michael wrote individual letters from 1991 to 1998, hundreds and hundreds of them. But he had no idea what was happening with the people who received them. What do you mean? The recipients started writing back, not just thank you notes, real letters about their lives, their dreams, their progress. Michael would read every response. But more than that, some of the letter recipients began connecting with each other. Dr. Kim leaned forward, his voice dropping. By 1995, there were informal support groups in several cities. People who had received Michael's letters were finding each other and helping each other. They called themselves things like Morning Circle or Anonymous Angels. None of them knew the letters came from Michael Jordan. Marcus felt like he was putting together pieces of a puzzle. So Jordan accidentally created support networks? More than that, these groups were starting small businesses together, tutoring each other's kids, pooling resources to help other families in need. Michael's individual letters had sparked something much bigger. Dr. Kim finished his coffee and looked out the window at the busy Chicago street. But Marcus, the letters were just the beginning. What he did with the responses he got back, that's what made him billions. Marcus grabbed Dr. Kim's arm. What do you mean? What did he do with the responses? Dr. Kim smiled, but there was something sad in his eyes. That's not my story to tell. You need to talk to the people who received the letters. People like Isabella Santos in Charlotte. He stood up and put money on the table for both their meals. But I'll give you one more piece of the puzzle. In 1998, Michael made a decision that changed everything. He stopped writing the individual letters, but he didn't stop the 4:30 a.m. routine. Dr. Kim headed toward the door, then turned back. He found a different way to connect, a way that turned what he learned from those letters into the foundation of his business empire. But it also meant giving up the thing that made him happiest. Marcus watched Dr. Kim walk out into the cold Chicago afternoon, leaving him with more questions than answers, and a growing sense that this story was bigger than anything he had imagined. Marcus sat in his rental car outside Lou Mitchell's restaurant, trying to process what Dr. Kim had told him. Jordan's letters had created support networks? People were connecting with each other because of anonymous encouragement from a basketball player they'd never met? He pulled out his phone and searched for Isabella Santos in Charlotte. There were several results, but one caught his attention. Santos Community Solutions, small business consulting. The website showed a professional-looking woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Marcus called the number listed on the website. Santos Community Solutions. This is Isabella. Miss Santos, this is Marcus Chen from ESPN. I'm working on a story about community development and mentorship. I was told you might have an interesting perspective on how anonymous support can help people succeed. There was silence on the phone for several seconds. Who gave you my name? Isabella's voice was suddenly guarded. Dr. Robert Kim in Chicago. And before him, a woman named Elena Rodriguez. Isabella's breath caught. Elena? Is she okay? She's not well, but she wanted this story to be told. Another long pause. Where are you now? Chicago. But I can be in Charlotte by tomorrow morning. Meet me at Park Road Park at 10 a.m. near the playground. I'll be wearing a red jacket. The next morning, Marcus drove through Charlotte, looking for Park Road Park. The February air was warmer than Chicago, and families were already out enjoying the sunshine. He spotted Isabella Santos sitting on a bench near the playground, watching children play. She looked exactly like her website photo, but there was something cautious in her posture. Mrs. Santos? Marcus approached carefully. Call me Isabella. She gestured for him to sit beside her. Elena really sent you? Marcus nodded and showed her the draft letter Elena had given him. Isabella took it with shaking hands. Oh my God, she whispered. I haven't seen his handwriting in years, but I'd recognize it anywhere. His handwriting? Isabella looked at Marcus with tears in her eyes. The person who wrote this letter changed my entire life. I just never knew who he was until much later. She took a deep breath and began her story. It was 1992. I was 19 years old and pregnant with my daughter Maria. The baby's father had left when he found out. I was living with my mom in a tiny apartment, working at a gas station for minimum wage. Isabella pointed to the playground where children were laughing and running. I remember feeling so hopeless, like I'd messed up my life before it really started. What happened? One morning in March, I found an envelope under my apartment door. No return address, just my name written in careful handwriting. Inside was $500 in cash, and a letter almost exactly like the one you just showed me. Isabella pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos until she found what she was looking for, a picture of an old, yellowed letter. Dear friend, I heard about your situation through someone who cares about you. I know things seem hard right now, but I want you to know that someone believes in you. Enclosed is a small gift to help with whatever you need most. Keep working toward your dreams. Better days are coming. A friend who believes in you. Marcus compared it to Elena's draft letter. The handwriting was identical. $500 was like a fortune to me then, Isabella continued. I used it to pay for childcare so I could attend community college classes at night. But the money wasn't even the most important part. What was? Someone believed in me. A complete stranger thought I was worth helping. That feeling, it gave me strength I didn't know I had. Isabella stood up and started walking along the park path. Marcus followed beside her. 2 weeks later, I decided to write a thank you note. The original letter had listed a P.O. box address. I didn't expect a response, but I felt like I had to try. Did you get one? Isabella smiled. 3 days later, another letter arrived. This one asked about my dreams, my plans for school, what I wanted to study. It felt like having a pen pal who actually cared about my life. They stopped at a picnic table, and Isabella sat down across from Marcus. The letters kept coming every few weeks, always encouraging, always asking thoughtful questions about my progress. Sometimes there was more money. $20 here, $50 there. Just enough to help with books or gas or childcare. Marcus was taking notes as fast as he could write. How long did this go on? About 6 months. But then something amazing happened. In one of my letters, I mentioned how lonely I felt being a single mom with no friends my age. A week later, I got a letter with 3 phone numbers. Other single mothers in Charlotte who were also trying to improve their lives. Isabella's eyes lit up with the memory. I was so nervous to call them, but when I did, I discovered they had all received similar letters from the same anonymous friend. We started meeting at a McDonald's once a week, just to talk and support each other. All of you were getting letters? All of us. Maria Gonzalez, trying to finish high school while raising twin boys. Jennifer Park, working 2 jobs while studying to be a nurse. Lisa Washington, starting a small catering business from her kitchen. We called ourselves the Thursday Night Circle. Isabella reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo. 4 young women sitting around a McDonald's table, all smiling and holding coffee cups. That picture was taken in 1993. By then, we weren't just meeting to talk. We were helping each other in real ways. Maria would babysit for Jennifer during her nursing classes. I helped Lisa design business cards for her catering. Jennifer helped me study for my accounting tests. Marcus studied the photo. These women looked happy, confident, hopeful. Did you ever find out who was sending the letters? Isabella nodded slowly. Not until much later. But Marcus, here's what you need to understand. We weren't the only group. By 1994, we'd heard about other circles in Charlotte, groups of people who'd all received similar anonymous letters and found each other. She pulled out another photo, this one showing a much larger group of people standing outside a community center. This was taken in 1995, a gathering of all the circles we knew about in Charlotte, 43 people, all connected because someone believed in us enough to write encouraging letters. Marcus counted the faces in the photo. Men and women of different ages and backgrounds, all smiling broadly. What happened to all these people? Isabella's smile widened. Maria became a teacher and now runs an after-school program for at-risk kids. Jennifer finished nursing school and works at the Children's Hospital. Lisa's catering business grew into 3 restaurants. I got my accounting degree and eventually started my consulting firm. She gestured around the park. Most of us still live in Charlotte. Our kids grew up together. We've hired each other, recommended each other for jobs, supported each other through divorces and deaths and celebrations. Marcus was amazed. All because of anonymous letters? The letters were just the spark, but they connected us to something bigger than ourselves. We realized that when people support each other, incredible things can happen. Isabella stood up and started walking back toward the parking lot. But Marcus, Charlotte wasn't unique. By 1997, we'd heard about similar groups in other cities. Atlanta, Miami, Richmond. All started by people who'd received anonymous letters of encouragement. She stopped walking and turned to face Marcus directly. In 1998, something changed. The letters stopped coming. Not just to me, but to everyone we knew. It was like our anonymous friend just disappeared. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. What happened in 1998? Isabella's expression grew serious. That's when we found out who our anonymous friend really was. And that's when he made the decision that nobody knows about, the one that made him a billionaire, but almost cost him everything else. She handed Marcus a business card with an address written on the back. If you really want to understand this story, you need to talk to someone who was there when everything changed. Someone who saw what happened when our anonymous friend realized what he'd accidentally created. Marcus looked at the address. It was in Wilmington, North Carolina. Tommy Mitchell? Marcus asked, remembering the third name Elena had given him. Isabella nodded. Tommy was part of the first circle that ever formed. He knows things that even I don't know. She walked toward her car, then turned back one more time. Marcus, what you're uncovering, it's not just about one person helping others. It's about how individual kindness can create ripples that change entire communities. But it's also about the price of keeping secrets and the courage it takes to let the world see who you really are. Marcus watched Isabella drive away, leaving him with a growing understanding that Michael Jordan's morning routine had created something far beyond basketball success, and that the biggest revelations were still to come. Marcus drove back to Wilmington with his mind spinning. 3 people, 3 cities, all connected by Michael Jordan's anonymous letters. But what happened in 1998 that changed everything? And how did helping struggling families make Jordan billions of dollars? He found the address Isabella had written on her business card. It led him to a small community center in a quiet neighborhood. The building looked old but well-maintained, with fresh paint and a sign that read Mitchell Community Center, Building Dreams Together. Inside, Marcus found Tommy Mitchell shooting baskets with a group of teenage boys. Tommy was a tall, lean man who looked to be around 60. His movements on the court were smooth and confident, like someone who had played basketball his whole life. "You boys keep practicing," Tommy called to the teenagers. "Remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about getting a little better every day." Marcus waited until the teens had moved to the other end of the court before approaching. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Marcus Chen from ESPN. Isabella Santos said you might be willing to talk to me about some community development work in the 1990s. Tommy studied Marcus for a moment, then smiled. "Isabella called me last night. She said you were asking about the morning letters. You received them too?" Tommy nodded and gestured for Marcus to follow him to a small office behind the basketball court. The walls were covered with photos of young people in graduation caps, families at community events, and groups of adults in business suits. 1991, Tommy began, settling into a chair behind his desk. "I was 28 years old with 2 little kids and no job. The textile mill where I'd worked for 6 years had just closed down. My wife, Carmen, was pregnant with our 3rd baby, and we were about to lose our apartment." Marcus pulled out his notebook, ready to hear another story of Jordan's anonymous kindness. "One morning in November, I found an envelope slipped under our door. Inside was $200 and a letter that said someone had heard about my situation and wanted to help. It was signed, 'A friend who believes in you.'" Tommy opened his desk drawer and pulled out a worn envelope. "I kept the original letter. Read it so many times over the years that I memorized every word." Marcus looked at the familiar handwriting. The same careful script he'd seen in Elena's draft and Isabella's photo. "The money helped us buy groceries and pay rent for another month. But more than that, the letter gave me hope. Someone out there knew I was struggling and thought I was worth helping." "Did you write back?" "I did. I found a P.O. box address at the bottom of the letter. I wrote to say thank you and to explain how I was looking for work, trying to provide for my family." Tommy stood up and walked to the window overlooking the basketball court. 2 weeks later, I got another letter. This one asked about my skills, what kind of work I enjoyed, what my dreams were for my family and community. "What did you tell him?" I wrote back that I'd always been good with my hands. Fixing things, building things. My father taught me carpentry and basic electrical work when I was young. I said my dream was to start my own handyman business, but I didn't have money for tools or a truck. Tommy smiled, remembering. The next letter changed everything. It had $500 and a note that said, "Every dream starts with a single step. Use this to buy the tools you need." Marcus was amazed by the generosity. $500 was a lot of money in 1991. It was everything to me. I bought a basic set of tools and started doing small repair jobs around the neighborhood. Word spread quickly. People trusted me because I did good work and charged fair prices. Tommy returned to his desk and pulled out a thick photo album. By 1993, I had enough regular customers to buy a used truck. By 1995, I was hiring other guys who needed work. Look at this. He opened the album to show Marcus photos of construction projects, home repairs, and groups of men in work clothes. This was my crew in 1996. 8 guys, all of them fathers trying to provide for their families. We were doing kitchen renovations, bathroom remodels, small additions, good honest work. Marcus studied the photos. The men looked proud and happy, standing next to their completed projects. But Tommy, how does this connect to the other letter recipients? Isabella mentioned that people started finding each other. Tommy's eyes lit up. That's where it gets really interesting. In 1994, I wrote to my anonymous friend about how business was going well, but I wished I could help other people the way he'd helped me. He turned the page in the album to show a newspaper clipping from 1995. The headline read, "Local handyman offers free home repairs for seniors." The next letter I got had 3 phone numbers. Other people in Wilmington who had received similar anonymous help and wanted to give back to the community. Marcus leaned forward. Who were they? Patricia Johnson, a teacher who'd received help finishing her education degree. Marcus Williams, a mechanic who'd gotten money to fix his tools after they were stolen. Sarah Kim, a nurse who'd been helped through a difficult divorce. Tommy flipped through more pages, showing photos of community events and volunteer projects. We started meeting once a month, just to talk about how we could help other families in need. We called ourselves the Morning Circle because we all seemed to get our letters early in the morning. How many people were in your group? By 1997, there were about 20 of us in Wilmington. But Marcus, here's what was amazing: we found out there were morning circles in other cities too. Isabella's group in Charlotte, similar groups in Atlanta, Richmond, Norfolk. Tommy closed the photo album and looked directly at Marcus. We were all connected by these anonymous letters, all helping each other succeed. Patricia would tutor kids whose parents were in my work program. Marcus would fix cars for free when families couldn't afford repairs. Sarah would provide basic health advice at community events. Marcus was taking notes furiously. This sounds like an incredible support network. It was, and it was growing. By 1997, we estimated there were maybe 300 people across 5 states, all connected through these morning letters. We'd started calling it the Anonymous Angel Network. Tommy stood up and walked to a wall covered with business cards and certificates. Look at this. Half the small businesses in this neighborhood were started by people who got help from the network. The barber shop, the corner market, the daycare center, the auto repair shop, all of them owned by people who received anonymous letters or got support from someone who did. Marcus studied the wall of success stories. This is incredible. But what happened in 1998? Isabella said everything changed. Tommy's expression grew serious. That's when we found out who our anonymous angel really was. And that's when he made the decision that would make him richer than any basketball contract ever could. He walked to his desk and pulled out a folder marked 1998 The Truth. But Marcus, learning the truth also meant he had to stop doing the one thing that made him happiest, the thing that connected him to who he really was underneath all the fame and money. Tommy held the folder but didn't open it yet. Are you sure you want to know the whole story? Because once I tell you what happened in 1998, you'll understand that Michael Jordan's billions didn't come from just being a great athlete. They came from understanding something about human nature that most business people never figure out. Marcus nodded eagerly. I need to know. Tommy opened the folder, and Marcus saw it was full of newspaper clippings, letters, and financial documents. In March 1998, our anonymous angel found out what he'd accidentally created. And when he realized the full power of what these morning letters had done, he made a choice that would change everything. Tommy looked at Marcus with an expression that mixed admiration and sadness. But it also meant he had to give up the personal connections that had become the most meaningful part of his life. Success always comes with a price, Marcus, even when you're trying to do good. Tommy opened the folder on his desk and pulled out a yellowed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Mystery Benefactor Behind Community Success Stories Finally Revealed." This article came out in the Charlotte Observer in March 1998, Tommy said, handing it to Marcus. Someone had been investigating the Anonymous Angel Network for months, trying to figure out who was behind all the support groups popping up across the Southeast. Marcus read the article quickly. A reporter named David Chen had traced P.O. box payments, handwriting samples, and financial records. The trail led back to Michael Jordan's personal accountant in Chicago. How did Jordan react when this came out? Tommy pulled out another document, a letter written on Chicago Bulls letterhead. He called an emergency meeting of all the Morning Circle leaders. Isabella from Charlotte, myself from Wilmington, Patricia Johnson here in town, and about 8 others from different cities. Marcus looked at the letter. It was an invitation to meet at a hotel in Charlotte on March 15, 1998. It was signed, Michael Jordan, your anonymous friend. I couldn't believe it, Tommy continued. For 7 years, I'd been writing letters to Michael Jordan. The greatest basketball player in the world had been encouraging me, supporting my family, helping me build my business. What was the meeting like? Tommy smiled, but his eyes looked sad. Michael was different than I expected. Quieter, more thoughtful. He seemed genuinely surprised by what his letters had created. Tommy pulled out a small notebook. I wrote down everything he said that day because I knew it was important. He opened the notebook and read from his careful handwriting. He told us, I started writing these letters because I wanted to help individual people. I never imagined it would create networks like this. You've built something amazing together. Marcus was fascinated. How did he seem? Was he happy about what had developed? That's the complicated part. He was proud of what we'd accomplished, but he was also worried. His lawyers had told him that if people found out he was behind the anonymous angel network, it could cause problems. What kind of problems? Tommy flipped a page in his notebook. Legal issues about tax implications for the money he'd given away. Business problems if his endorsement partners thought he was running some kind of charity scheme without their knowledge. Privacy concerns about more people trying to contact him directly. Tommy closed the notebook and looked at Marcus seriously. But the biggest problem was that he'd discovered something powerful, and he didn't know what to do with it. What do you mean? Michael had accidentally figured out how to create economic development from the ground up. His letters hadn't just helped individual people. They'd created a model for community transformation that was working in multiple cities. Tommy stood up and walked to a whiteboard on his office wall. He drew a simple diagram showing one person at the top connected to several others, who were then connected to even more people below them. Think about it, Marcus. One person writing encouraging letters created support networks that generated hundreds of small businesses, thousands of jobs, and millions of dollars in economic activity. That's not charity. That's a business strategy. Marcus stared at the diagram. So what did he decide to do? Tommy erased the whiteboard and sat back down. He made a choice that nobody saw coming. He stopped writing the individual letters, but he used what he'd learned to become a different kind of investor. He pulled out a thick folder of financial documents. Starting in late 1998, Michael began quietly investing in small businesses owned by people from the anonymous angel network, not as charity, but as a business partner. Tommy showed Marcus bank statements and investment records. He provided capital to help network members expand their businesses. Tommy's handyman service became Mitchell Construction Company. Isabella's accounting practice became Santos Community Solutions. Patricia's tutoring program became Johnson Learning Center. Marcus studied the documents. The amounts were significant, tens of thousands of dollars per investment. But here's the genius part, Tommy continued. Michael didn't just give money. He connected network members with each other as customers and suppliers. Isabella did the books for my construction company. Patricia provided educational services to the children of employees at Isabella's firm. Tommy pulled out a spreadsheet showing business relationships between network members. By 2000, the former anonymous angel network had become an informal business ecosystem. We were all helping each other succeed, and Michael was earning returns on his investments while creating jobs in communities across multiple states. Marcus was amazed by the complexity of what Jordan had created. This sounds incredibly sophisticated. It was, and it taught Michael something that most investors never understand, that sustainable business success comes from building genuine relationships and understanding what communities actually need. Tommy walked to the window and looked out at his community center. Michael took what he learned from 7 years of writing personal letters and turned it into a business philosophy. Instead of just looking at financial projections, he invested in people he knew and trusted. Instead of focusing only on profits, he built businesses that strengthened communities. Is this how he made his billions? Tommy nodded. Partly, The investment returns were excellent because the businesses were built on solid relationships and met real community needs. But more importantly, Michael learned how to identify opportunities that other investors missed. He returned to his desk and pulled out one more document, a business magazine article from 2006. This article is about Jordan's investment in urban development projects. It talks about his unusual ability to understand community dynamics and identify profitable opportunities in underserved markets. Marcus read the article. It praised Jordan's business instincts but had no idea about the anonymous angel network that taught him those skills. So the morning letters were like a business education? Exactly. For 7 years, Michael corresponded with hundreds of people from different backgrounds in different cities, facing different challenges. He learned what really helps people succeed. He understood how communities actually work. Tommy gathered the documents back into the folder. But Marcus, there's something else you need to understand. When Michael stopped writing individual letters in 1998, it broke his heart. Tommy's voice grew quiet. Those morning letters weren't just charity to him. They were the most meaningful part of his day, the time when he felt most connected to his values, most like the person his father raised him to be. What do you mean? Michael told us at that meeting in Charlotte that writing those letters made him happier than any basketball game he'd ever won. It was his way of staying grounded, of remembering that success should be about helping others. Tommy looked at Marcus with a mixture of admiration and sadness. He gave up the thing that brought him the most joy because he realized he could help more people by building businesses than by writing individual letters. But the cost was losing those personal connections that had become the center of his life. Marcus felt the weight of what Tommy was telling him. So Jordan's billions came at a personal price? Every morning since 1998, Michael has had to choose business strategy over personal connection. He became incredibly successful, but he lost something precious in the process. Tommy closed the folder and looked directly at Marcus. But here's the secret that nobody knows, not even Isabella or the other network members. Michael never completely gave up his morning routine. Marcus leaned forward eagerly. What do you mean? Tommy smiled mysteriously. He found a different way to maintain those personal connections. A new 4:30 a.m. habit that he's kept for over 25 years. Something that would surprise everyone who thinks they know Michael Jordan. Marcus grabbed Tommy's arm. What does he do? Tommy shook his head. That's not my story to tell. But I'll give you one more name. Someone who knows the whole truth about Michael's current morning routine. He wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to Marcus. Elena Rodriguez wasn't the only person who cleaned Michael's houses over the years. There's someone else who's been part of his life since the very beginning. Someone who knows secrets that would change how the world sees Michael Jordan forever. Marcus looked at the paper. It had a name and phone number, Maria Gonzalez, from Chicago. Tommy stood up, indicating the interview was over. But Marcus, when you talk to Maria, remember this. Some secrets are kept not because they're shameful, but because they're sacred. Marcus sat in his rental car outside Tommy's community center, staring at the piece of paper with Maria Gonzalez's phone number. His hands were shaking slightly as he dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a woman's voice answered. She spoke with a slight Spanish accent. Hello, Miss Gonzalez? This is Marcus Chen, a reporter from ESPN. Tommy Mitchell in Wilmington gave me your number. He said you might be able to help me understand something about Michael Jordan's morning routine. There was a long silence on the phone. Tommy told you to call me? Maria's voice was cautious. Yes, ma'am. I've been investigating a story about Jordan's anonymous letters from the 1990s. Tommy said you know something about what Jordan does now, in the mornings. Another pause. Where are you? North Carolina? But I can fly anywhere you'd like to meet. Come to Chicago, but not to my house. Meet me at Grant Park tomorrow at noon by the fountain. I'll be wearing a yellow coat. The line went dead. Marcus flew back to Chicago that evening, his mind racing with questions. Who was Maria Gonzalez? How did she know Jordan? And what secret was so sacred that Tommy wouldn't even hint at what it was? The next day, Marcus found Grant Park easily. The February weather was cold, but families were still out enjoying the afternoon. He spotted an elderly woman in a bright yellow coat sitting on a bench near the fountain. She looked to be in her late 70s, with silver hair and kind eyes. Was Gonzalez? She looked up at Marcus and smiled. You can call me Maria. Sit down, mijo. Marcus sat beside her on the bench. Tommy said you know about Jordan's current morning routine. Maria nodded slowly. I know because I'm part of it. I have been for over 30 years. What do you mean? Maria pulled a small thermos of coffee from her bag and poured herself a cup. I worked as a night janitor at Chicago Stadium from 1988 to 1994. I cleaned the Bulls' locker room and the hallways. She took a sip of coffee and continued. In those early years, before Michael became really famous, he would come to the stadium very early for extra practice, sometimes at 5 a.m., sometimes even earlier. Marcus was taking notes as Maria spoke. I would still be working, finishing up my cleaning duties. Michael was always polite to me, always said good morning. He would ask about my family in his broken Spanish. Maria smiled at the memory. I had 6 children at home. My husband had left us, and I was working 2 jobs to pay rent. Michael could see I was tired, stressed. He would encourage me, tell me to keep working hard for my kids. When did you first receive one of his letters? November 1991. I found it in my locker at the stadium. It was written in Spanish. Not perfect Spanish, but he was trying. It said he knew I was working hard for my family, and that he wanted to help. Maria reached into her purse and pulled out a worn envelope. I kept the first letter he ever sent me. Marcus looked at the letter. Jordan's handwriting was careful but uncertain as he wrote in Spanish. There was $50 with the letter. $50 was like a fortune to me then. I could buy groceries for a week with that money. Did you write back to him? Maria nodded. I wrote in Spanish, thanking him. I told him about my children, my dreams for them to go to college, my struggles to keep our family together. What happened next? Michael started learning Spanish so he could write better letters to me. His Spanish got better and better over the years. We wrote to each other every few weeks. Maria finished her coffee and looked across the park at children playing. But Marcus, I wasn't like the other people who got letters. Michael told me who he was from the beginning. He said he trusted me to keep his secret. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. You knew it was Jordan writing to you? Sigh. And when he stopped writing letters to everyone else in 1998, he asked me if he could do something different. What? Maria smiled. He asked if he could call me instead. Every morning at 4:30 a.m., before he started his day, he said talking to me helped him remember who he was underneath all the fame and money. Marcus stared at Maria. Jordan calls you every morning? For 26 years now. Every single morning at 4:30 a.m., my phone rings, and it's Michael. We talk for maybe 30 minutes, sometimes longer. Maria pulled out a small notebook from her purse. I keep track of our conversations. Look. She opened the notebook to show page after page of dates and brief notes. February 1st, talked about his mother's health. February 2nd, discussed problems with the Hornets team. February 3rd, asked advice about business decision. Marcus counted the entries. There were thousands. What do you talk about? Everything. His family, his businesses, his worries, his dreams. I tell him about my grandchildren, about people in my neighborhood, about what I see in the world. Maria's eyes grew warm. Michael asks for my advice about important decisions. When he was thinking about buying the Charlotte Hornets, I told him it was good to help young men achieve their dreams. When he was unsure about a business partnership, I reminded him to trust his instincts. Why does he call you specifically? Maria was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Michael's father taught him that wisdom comes from understanding different perspectives. I am an old Mexican woman who raised 6 children working as a janitor. Michael is one of the most successful men in the world. But we both understand struggle. We both know what it means to work hard for your family. She closed the notebook and looked at Marcus directly. Michael calls me every morning because I help him stay connected to the person his father raised him to be. I remind him that success should make you more generous, not less caring. Marcus was amazed. Does anyone else know about these calls? Maria shook her head. His family knows he talks to me sometimes, but they don't know it happens every single day. Even his closest friends don't know about our morning routine. Why keep it secret? Because it's sacred, like Tommy told you. This isn't about business or publicity or image. It's about Michael's soul. Maria stood up slowly and started walking along the park path. Marcus followed beside her. You want to know how Michael Jordan really became a billionaire? It wasn't just smart investments or good business deals. It was because he never stopped learning from people who see the world differently than he does. She stopped walking and turned to face Marcus. Every morning for 26 years, Michael has started his day by talking to someone who reminds him what really matters. Someone who helps him understand how his decisions affect real people in real communities. Marcus was quiet, processing what Maria had told him. "But there's something else you need to know," Maria continued. "Something that would shock the world if they found out." She reached into her purse and pulled out a key. "I'm 79 years old, mijo. My health isn't good. Before I die, there's something I need to show you. Something I've been keeping safe for Michael, but he doesn't know I have it." Maria handed Marcus the key and a piece of paper with an address. "Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., go to this storage unit. Inside, you'll find boxes of things I've been saving for 30 years. Things that will show you the real reason Michael Jordan's morning routine created a billion-dollar empire." She started walking back toward the parking area. "But Marcus, when you see what's in those boxes, you'll understand why some secrets are too important to keep forever." Marcus watched Maria walk away, clutching the key in his hand and wondering what final revelation was waiting for him in a storage unit in Chicago. Marcus barely slept that night. He kept staring at the key Maria had given him, wondering what could be so important that she'd kept it secret for 30 years. At 8:30 a.m., he drove to the address she'd written down. The storage facility was in a quiet part of Chicago, surrounded by small businesses and apartment buildings. Marcus found Unit 247 and slipped the key into the lock. His hands were shaking as he rolled up the metal door. Inside were dozens of cardboard boxes, all neatly labeled with dates ranging from 1991 to 2024. Marcus opened the nearest box and found hundreds of letters, all written in Spanish in Jordan's familiar handwriting. But these weren't copies of the letters Jordan had sent to Maria. These were letters Maria had written back to Jordan, letters she had never mailed. Marcus picked up one from 1993 and read Maria's careful Spanish handwriting, translated in his mind to English. "Dear Michael, you told me today about your father's death and how lost you feel. I want you to know that grief is the price we pay for love. Your papa lives on in the good things you do for others. Keep writing your morning letters. They honor his memory." Marcus realized Maria had been keeping a secret journal of their relationship for over 30 years, writing responses to every conversation they'd had. He opened another box and found something that made his heart race. It was full of maps, newspaper clippings, and business records. The maps showed cities across the United States with red pins marking locations. The newspaper clippings were success stories about small businesses, community development projects, and economic growth in those exact same cities. Marcus studied the materials more carefully. The red pins marked every city where Jordan's anonymous angel networks had operated. But there were many more pins than the cities he'd already learned about. Chicago, Charlotte, Wilmington, Atlanta, Richmond, but also Detroit, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Houston, Phoenix, and dozens of others. In a box marked 1995-2000, Marcus found a thick folder labeled The Real Network. Inside were hundreds of letters from janitors, security guards, maintenance workers, and cleaning staff at sports arenas across the country. Marcus read letter after letter, all written to Maria. The writers explained how they'd started their own anonymous letter programs in their cities, inspired by stories Maria had shared about a basketball player who helped people with morning letters. A letter from Carlos Mendez in Los Angeles. "Maria, I started writing letters to struggling families in my neighborhood just like you told me about. I've helped 12 people so far, and 3 of them started their own businesses." A letter from Janet Williams in Detroit. "The Morning Letter Circle we started here now has 43 members. We've helped people find jobs, finish school, and start small companies. It's working just like you said it would." Marcus sat down on the concrete floor of the storage unit, overwhelmed by what he was discovering. Maria hadn't just been Jordan's morning phone call partner. She had secretly created a nationwide network of arena workers who replicated Jordan's letter-writing method in their own communities. He opened more boxes and found the full scope of what Maria had documented. By her careful records, over 200 cities now had morning letter circles operated by arena and stadium employees. The circles had directly helped over 100,000 people start businesses, finish education, overcome personal challenges, or improve their communities. But Maria had kept this expansion secret from everyone, even from Jordan. Marcus found a box marked for Michael to open after I die, and hesitated. Should he open it? Maria had trusted him with the key, but this box seemed too personal. His phone rang suddenly, making him jump. The caller ID showed Maria's number. "Marcus, are you at the storage unit?" "Yes, I'm here. Maria, this is incredible. You created a national network without Jordan even knowing?" Maria's voice was weak. "I'm in the hospital, mijo. My cancer got worse last night. I need you to understand something important. Marcus clutched the phone. What do you need me to know? Open the box marked for Michael. I want you to see what I was going to tell him before I die. What I should have told him years ago. Marcus found the box and opened it. Inside was a single thick notebook with the truth about the morning calls written on the cover. What is this, Maria? Read the first page. Marcus opened the notebook. Maria's handwriting was shaky but clear. Michael calls me every morning because he thinks I'm the only person left from his letter-writing days who really understands him. But he doesn't know that I've been building something much bigger than what he started. Something that could change how the whole world thinks about helping others. Marcus flipped through pages of detailed records. Maps showing the locations of 200+ morning letter circles. Financial estimates showing that the circles had created over $50 million in new small businesses. Academic research about community development that unknowingly studied Maria's network. Maria, you've been documenting everything for 30 years? Psych. But Marcus, there's something else. Something that will surprise you more than anything you've learned so far. Marcus waited, his heart pounding. Every morning when Michael calls me, he's not the first call he makes. What do you mean? Michael makes several calls every morning at 4:30 a.m. He calls me. Yes, but he also calls Isabella in Charlotte, Tommy in Wilmington, Dr. Kim in Chicago, and about 20 other people from his original anonymous angel network. Marcus was stunned. He calls all of them every morning? Not every day for everyone, but he rotates through a list of about 50 people. Every morning for 26 years, he's been making phone calls to stay connected with the people his letters helped. Maria's voice was getting weaker. That's his real morning rule, Marcus. He doesn't just call me. He calls ordinary people all across the country, every single day, to check on them and learn from them. Marcus sat in silence processing this revelation. But why keep it secret? Because Michael is afraid that if people knew about his morning calls, they would think it was a publicity stunt, or that too many people would try to contact him. He wants these relationships to stay genuine. Maria coughed, and Marcus could hear that she was in pain. Marcus, I'm dying. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but I need you to help me tell Michael the truth about what his morning letters really created. What truth? That his simple idea of writing encouraging letters became a national movement that's still growing 30 years later. That hundreds of thousands of people have been helped by networks that trace back to his 4:30 a.m. routine. Marcus looked around the storage unit filled with 30 years of documentation. And I need you to help me show him that his morning phone calls haven't just kept him grounded. They've given him the knowledge to build businesses that really help communities. How? Tomorrow is Michael's birthday, February 17th. I was going to call him and tell him everything, but I'm too sick now. Will you help me? Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Maria, are you sure you want this story to come out? It's going to change everything for Jordan. Maria's voice was barely a whisper now. Michael has spent 30 years thinking his morning routine was just personal. It's time he learned that he accidentally started something that could change the world. The line went quiet for a moment. Will you help me tell him? Will you help me show Michael that his morning rule didn't just make him a better person? It made thousands of people believe in goodness again. Marcus looked around the storage unit filled with 30 years of Maria's careful documentation. His phone was still pressed to his ear, and he could hear Maria's labored breathing on the other end. Yes, he said quietly. I'll help you tell him. Thank you, Miko. But there's one more thing you need to understand before you talk to Michael. Marcus sat down on a box labeled 1-1099 2005 and prepared to listen. I haven't just been documenting the networks that grew from Michael's letters. I've been studying them, learning from them, understanding why they work so well. Maria paused to catch her breath. In that box marked research, you'll find something that will surprise you. Marcus found the box and opened it. Inside were academic papers, business studies, and reports about community development. Many of them had Maria's name listed as a co-author. Maria, you're a published researcher? My youngest daughter, Carmen, became a professor of social work at Northwestern University. Starting in 2001, she helped me turn my observations into real academic research. Marcus looked at the papers. Community-based economic development through peer support networks. The psychology of anonymous giving in urban communities. Sustainable business growth through grassroots relationship building. These are all based on Jordan's letter networks? Sigh, but without using his name. We studied how the morning letter circles worked, what made them successful, why they created lasting change instead of just temporary help. Maria's voice grew stronger as she talked about her research. Marcus, we discovered something important. Michael's letters worked because they combined three things that most charity programs don't do together. What three things? Personal encouragement, practical help, and connection to community. The letters made people feel valued as individuals. The small amounts of money solved immediate problems. But most importantly, the letters connected people to others facing similar challenges. Marcus was taking notes on the back of an envelope. We found that when you help someone and then connect them with others who can help them too, you create something much stronger than charity. You create community power. What do you mean? Instead of people depending on one generous person, they learn to help each other. They build businesses together, share resources, create jobs for their neighbors. The help becomes sustainable because it's not coming from outside the community anymore. Marcus understood. So Jordan's letters taught people to help themselves and each other. Exactly. And Marcus, this is why Michael became so successful in business. His daily phone calls with people from different communities taught him how real economic development works. Maria coughed, and Marcus heard a nurse's voice in the background. I have to go soon, Migo. But look in the box marked Michael's future. There's something there I've been preparing for years. Marcus found the box and opened it. Inside was a detailed business plan with the title, The Morning Foundation, a new model for community development. What is this, Maria? It's my proposal for how Michael could use what he's learned from 30 years of morning calls to create something bigger than any business he's ever built. Marcus flipped through the plan. It outlined a foundation that would train community leaders to start their own morning letter circles in cities across the world. Instead of depending on one wealthy person to help everyone, the foundation would teach people to create support networks in their own neighborhoods. The plan shows how this could work in 1,000 cities, helping millions of people. But it would require Michael to reveal the truth about his morning routine and become the public face of the movement. Marcus studied the financial projections. The plan was incredibly detailed and professionally prepared. Maria, this could change how the world thinks about poverty and community development. Sigh. But it would also mean Michael could never have private morning phone calls again. Everyone would know about his 4:30 a.m. routine. His quiet, personal way of staying connected to his values would become a public program. Marcus understood the dilemma. He would have to give up his privacy to help more people. That's the choice I want to present to him tomorrow morning. Keep his morning routine private and personal, or share it with the world to help millions of people. A nurse's voice came through the phone more clearly. Mrs. Gonzalez, we need to run some tests now. Marcus, I have to go. But promise me you'll help me talk to Michael tomorrow morning. Promise me you'll help him understand what his simple morning letters became. I promise, Maria. Good. Call me at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. I want to be there when you tell him everything. The phone went quiet. Marcus sat alone in the storage unit, surrounded by boxes that contained the secret history of Michael Jordan's most private habit. He thought about everything he'd learned over the past week. Jordan's anonymous letters had accidentally created a nationwide movement. His daily phone calls had given him insights that helped build his business empire. And now an elderly woman who cleaned stadiums had secretly documented it all and created a plan to help millions more people. But the biggest revelation was still sinking in. Maria Gonzalez wasn't just a janitor who received Jordan's letters. She was a brilliant community organizer who had spent 30 years studying and expanding Jordan's methods. She had turned his individual act of kindness into a replicable model for social change. Marcus looked at his watch. It was 3:30 p.m. In 12.5 hours, he would be part of revealing to Michael Jordan that his private morning routine had become something he never imagined. He began loading the most important boxes into his car. The research papers, the business plan, the maps showing 200+ cities with morning letter circles, and Maria's notebook documenting 30 years of 4:30 a.m. phone calls. As he drove back to his hotel, Marcus realized this story had become much bigger than he'd expected. This wasn't just about a basketball player's generous morning routine. It was about how one person's private practice of kindness had grown into a movement that was changing communities across America. And tomorrow morning, on Michael Jordan's 61st birthday, Marcus would help Maria give him the biggest surprise of his life. Marcus spent the night in his Chicago hotel room, reading through Maria's research papers and trying to understand the full scope of what she had discovered. At 3:45 a.m., his phone alarm went off. 15 minutes until he was supposed to call Maria. His hands were shaking as he dialed her hospital room number. A nurse answered. I'm sorry, but Mrs. Gonzalez is very weak this morning. She can only talk for a few minutes. Please, it's important. She's expecting my call. The nurse put Maria on the phone. Her voice was barely a whisper. Marcus, are you ready? Yes, but Maria, are you strong enough for this conversation? I've been waiting 79 years to tell this story. Mijo, I'm ready. Marcus had arranged everything according to Maria's instructions. He was sitting in his car outside a small house in a quiet Chicago neighborhood, the house Jordan had bought for Maria in 2001. The phone will ring in exactly 5 minutes, Maria whispered. That will be Michael calling for our morning talk. You answer it and put it on speakerphone so I can hear too. Marcus felt his heart pounding. In 5 minutes, he would be talking to Michael Jordan about the most private part of his life. What should I say to him? Tell him you're a reporter who's been learning about his morning letters. Tell him I asked you to call because I have something important to share with him on his birthday. At exactly 4:30 a.m., the phone rang. Marcus answered with trembling hands. Hello? There was surprise in the voice that responded. Who is this? I'm trying to reach Maria Gonzalez. Mr. Jordan, this is Marcus Chen. I'm a reporter with ESPN. Maria asked me to answer her phone this morning because she has something very important to tell you for your birthday. A long pause. Where is Maria? Is she okay? Marcus heard Maria's weak voice through his hospital phone. Tell him I'm in the hospital, but that I'm okay enough for this conversation. She's in the hospital, Mr. Jordan, but she specifically wanted to talk to you this morning. She said it couldn't wait. Put her on the phone. Marcus connected the hospital call to the house phone so all three of them could talk together. Michael, Maria's voice was barely audible. Maria, what's going on? Are you all right? Who is this reporter? Mijo. I'm okay, but I need to tell you something I should have told you years ago. Something about our morning phone calls and your letters from the 1990s. Jordan's voice became concerned. What about them? Maria took a shaky breath. Marcus has been investigating your anonymous angel letters. He's talked to Isabella in Charlotte, Tommy in Wilmington, Dr. Kim here in Chicago. He knows about the networks that formed from your letters. There was silence on Jordan's end. Michael, are you there? I'm here. Maria, those letters were supposed to be private. Why is a reporter investigating them? Marcus spoke up. Mr. Jordan, I started investigating because someone told me you had a morning routine that made you billions of dollars. I thought it was about business strategies or workout habits. I had no idea it was about helping people. Those letters weren't about business. They were personal. They were about staying connected to the values my father taught me. Maria's voice grew a little stronger. Michael, that's exactly why you need to hear what Marcus discovered. Your personal morning routine became something much bigger than you ever knew. What do you mean? Marcus opened Maria's notebook and began reading from her careful records. Mr. Jordan, I've learned that your letters from 1991 to 1998 created support networks in at least 12 cities. These networks helped hundreds of people start businesses, finish school, overcome personal challenges. But that was just the beginning. Jordan was quiet, listening. After you stopped writing letters and started making phone calls instead, something else happened. Maria has been documenting it all for 30 years. Maria, what is he talking about? Maria's voice was growing weaker, but she pushed forward. Michael, I need to tell you something. When you started calling me every morning in 1998, you thought I was just your friend from the old days. But I was also documenting everything. Documenting what? How your morning phone calls kept you connected to real communities. How they taught you things about business that other wealthy people never learn. How they helped you make investment decisions that actually helped people instead of just making money. Marcus looked at his notes from Maria's research. Mr. Jordan, Maria has academic papers showing that your business success came partly from understanding how communities really work. Knowledge you gained from talking to ordinary people every morning for 26 years. Jordan's voice was confused. I don't understand. My phone calls with Maria and the others are just personal conversations. Checking in on friends. Maria made a sound that might have been a laugh. Ay, mijo. You never realized, did you? When you call Isabella every few weeks and she tells you about challenges her small business clients face, that's market research. When Tommy tells you about community development projects in Wilmington, that's learning about economic opportunities. When you call me and I tell you about my grandchildren's struggles in school, you learn about education needs. When I tell you about my neighbors who can't afford healthcare, you learn about community problems. Marcus could hear Jordan processing this information. Your morning phone calls weren't just about staying grounded, Michael. They were like having a personal research team of 50 people from different backgrounds, in different cities, telling you about real problems that needed solutions. Jordan was quiet for a long moment. So you're saying my phone calls helped me in business? More than that, Marcus said, looking at Maria's business plan. Maria has been secretly expanding your letter writing idea for 30 years. She's created morning letter circles in over 200 cities. What are you talking about? Maria's breathing was getting more labored, but she continued. Michael, I've been working with janitors and maintenance workers at sports arenas across the country. I taught them how to start anonymous letter programs in their communities, just like yours. You did what? By my count, over 100,000 people have been helped by programs that started with your idea. Thousands of small businesses, hundreds of community organizations, all because I shared your letter writing method with other arena workers. Jordan's voice was stunned. Maria, why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to show you what was possible before asking you to make a decision. Marcus opened Maria's business plan. Mr. Jordan, Maria has created a proposal for something called the Morning Foundation. It's a way to teach your letter writing and phone call methods to community leaders worldwide. But Michael, Maria's voice was getting very weak now. It would mean telling the world about your morning routine. No more private phone calls. No more secret ways of staying connected to your values. The phone was quiet except for the sound of Maria's difficult breathing. Maria, are you okay? I'm dying, mijo. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow. But before I go, I need to know if you're willing to share your morning rule with the world. Jordan's voice was thick with emotion. Maria, don't talk like that. You're going to be fine. Michael, listen to me. Your morning letters and phone calls accidentally created a model for helping communities that could work in every city in the world. But only if you're brave enough to let people know that the greatest basketball player ever spends every morning talking to janitors and single mothers and small business owners. Marcus could hear Jordan crying softly on the other end of the phone. The choice is yours, mijo. Keep your mornings private and personal, or share them with the world to help millions of people believe in goodness again. The phone line was silent for nearly a minute. Marcus could hear Jordan breathing heavily on the other end, and Maria's labored breathing from the hospital. Finally, Jordan spoke. Maria, I need to see you. Right now. Michael, I'm in the hospital. I'm very sick. I don't care. What hospital? I'm coming there. Maria gave him the address of Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Room 412. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Marcus, you come too. We need to finish this conversation face to face. Marcus drove quickly through the early morning Chicago streets, his mind racing. In a few minutes, he would be in a hospital room with Michael Jordan, discussing the most private part of the basketball legend's life. When Marcus arrived at the hospital, Jordan was already there. He looked older than in his recent photos, but his eyes were sharp and intense. He was sitting beside Maria's bed, holding her hand. You must be the reporter, Jordan said without looking up. Yes, sir. Marcus Chen. Jordan finally looked at Marcus. Maria's been telling me more about what you discovered. About the networks, the research, her foundation plan. Marcus sat in a chair near the window. Mr. Jordan, I hope you understand that I never intended to invade your privacy. I was just following a story about community development. I know. Jordan turned back to Maria. Maria, show me everything. Marcus opened his laptop and pulled up photos of the documents from Maria's storage unit. The maps showing 200+ cities with morning letter circles. The academic papers about community development. The business plan for the Morning Foundation. Jordan studied each image carefully, asking questions about the research methods, the financial projections, and the potential impact. So you're telling me that maintenance workers at basketball arenas have been running support groups based on my old letters? Maria nodded weakly. Carlos at the Lakers arena, Janet in Detroit, Roberto in Phoenix. Dozens of them. They've helped thousands of people. And this foundation plan could expand it to how many cities? Marcus looked at the business plan. According to Maria's research, potentially 1,000 cities worldwide. The model is simple enough that community leaders could be trained to implement it anywhere. Jordan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. But it would mean telling everyone about my morning routine. The phone calls, the letters, all of it. Yes, Maria said quietly. No more privacy. No more quiet mornings talking to old friends. It would become a public program with media attention and publicity. Jordan was quiet for several minutes. Marcus could see him wrestling with the decision. What would happen to our phone calls, Maria? Would we still talk? Maria smiled sadly. Probably not the same way, Misho. Once the world knows about your morning routine, everyone will want to be part of it. The calls would have to become more formal, more structured. So I'd lose the thing that's kept me grounded for 26 years. You'd lose the privacy, yes. But Michael, think about what you'd gain. Think about all the people who could be helped. Jordan returned to Maria's bedside and sat down. Tell me honestly, Maria, is this what you really want? For me to give up our personal relationship to help strangers? Maria reached up and touched Jordan's face. Michael, our relationship isn't going away. It's going to grow. Instead of helping 50 people with your phone calls, you could help 50,000. Instead of changing a few communities, you could change the world. Marcus watched this intimate conversation between two people who had shared 30 years of 4:30 a.m. phone calls. But, Maria continued, only if you want to. I won't pressure you to give up something that brings you peace. Jordan looked at the business plan again. How would it work? The foundation? Marcus read from Maria's detailed proposal. Community leaders would be trained to start morning letter circles in their neighborhoods. The foundation would provide small grants for initial expenses. Paper, stamps, meeting spaces. The circles would operate independently, but share methods and success stories. And my role? You'd be the public face of the movement. Speaking at events, meeting with community leaders, sharing your story about how morning letters changed your life. Jordan was quiet again, thinking. Maria, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Why did you keep all this secret for so long? Why didn't you tell me years ago about the networks you were building? Maria's eyes filled with tears. Because I wanted to prove it worked first. I wanted to show you that your simple idea could change the world before asking you to sacrifice your privacy for it. And also, she added with a weak smile, because I knew this decision would be hard for you. I wanted to wait until the right moment. Jordan laughed softly. And you think my 61st birthday while you're in the hospital dying is the right moment? See, because now you know what's possible. And now you have to decide what kind of legacy you want to leave. Marcus felt like he was witnessing something sacred, a conversation between two friends who had shared decades of morning talks about life, values, and helping others. Jordan stood up again and paced to the window. If I say yes to this foundation, everything changes. My quiet mornings become public events. My personal conversations become business meetings. The thing that's kept me connected to who I really am becomes a brand. Yes, Maria said simply, that's the cost. But if I say no, all those people who could be helped by morning letter circles in other cities won't get that help. Also, yes. Jordan turned back to face Maria and Marcus. There's no middle ground here? No way to expand the program without me becoming the public face of it? Maria shook her head. Michael, people need to know that this comes from you. That the greatest basketball player in history thinks ordinary people are worth helping. Without your name and story, it's just another charity program. Marcus watched Jordan struggle with perhaps the hardest decision of his life. Maria, if I do this, will you help me? Will you be part of the foundation? Maria's voice was barely a whisper now. Mijo, I'm dying. Maybe I have days, maybe weeks, but not long enough to help you build this. Jordan sat down heavily in his chair. Then I'd be doing this without you. Without the person who taught me that morning conversations could change lives. No, Michael, you'd be doing it because of me. Because of everything we learned together in 30 years of 4:30 a.m. phone calls. The room fell silent except for the sounds of Maria's medical equipment. Finally, Jordan spoke. I need some time to think about this. How much time? Maria asked. Jordan looked at his old friend, seeing how frail she had become. Give me until tomorrow morning. I'll call you at 4:30 a.m. with my answer. Marcus realized he was about to witness the end of a 30-year tradition and possibly the beginning of something that could change the world. Marcus left the hospital that morning, knowing his life had changed forever. He had stumbled onto the story of his career, but more than that, he had witnessed something sacred, a friendship built on 30 years of 4:30 a.m. phone calls that had accidentally changed thousands of lives. He spent the day writing notes, organizing Maria's research, and trying to process everything he had learned. That evening, Jordan called him. Marcus, can you meet me at Maria's house tomorrow morning at 4:25 a.m.? I want you there when I make my final call to her. Of course, Mr. Jordan. And Marcus, whatever decision I make tomorrow, I want you to write this story. The world needs to know about Maria and what she built, even if they never know about my part in it. That night, Marcus could barely sleep. At 4 a.m., he drove through the quiet Chicago streets to Maria's small house. Jordan was already there, sitting in his car in the driveway. "How are you feeling about your decision?" Marcus asked as they walked to the front door. Jordan looked tired. "I've been thinking all night about my father, about what he taught me, about what Maria has shown me is possible." They went inside the house Jordan had bought for Maria 23 years earlier. The living room was simple but comfortable, with family photos covering every surface. Jordan sat in what was obviously his usual chair beside an old telephone. "I've been sitting in this chair for over 20 years, Jordan said. "Every few weeks when I'm in Chicago, I come here instead of calling Maria from my hotel. We sit and talk for hours." Marcus looked at the photos on the walls. Many showed Maria with her children and grandchildren, but several showed her with Jordan at various events over the decades, always candid shots of two friends talking and laughing together. "She's been like a second mother to me," Jordan continued. "After my father died, Maria became the person who helped me remember what really mattered." At exactly 4:30 a.m., Jordan picked up the phone and dialed the hospital. "Maria, it's Michael." Marcus could hear Maria's weak voice through the phone. "Buenos dias, mijo. Did you sleep?" "Not much. I spent the night thinking about everything you showed me yesterday." "And what did you decide?" Jordan was quiet for a moment, then spoke with quiet certainty. "Maria, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start the Morning Foundation." Even through the phone, Marcus could hear Maria crying. "Are you sure, Michael? You know what you're giving up?" "I'm sure. You've shown me that my private morning routine accidentally became something bigger than I ever imagined. If it can help millions more people, then I have to share it. But me, Joe, our phone calls will have to change." "Yes. But Maria, what you've taught me over 30 years, that real success means helping others, that genuine relationships create lasting change, that morning conversations can transform lives, those lessons will live on through the foundation." Jordan's voice grew stronger as he spoke. "You've been preparing me for this moment for 30 years, haven't you? All those morning calls, all that advice about staying connected to my values, all those stories about your grandchildren and your community, you were teaching me how to think beyond my own success." "Sin," Maria whispered. "I was hoping you would eventually see what was possible. Well, I see it now, and I want Marcus to tell the whole story, about the anonymous letters, about the networks that formed, about your secret research and the circles you created across the country." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "But Michael," Maria said, "once this story comes out, everyone will know about your morning routine. People will try to call you, write to you, ask for help. Your privacy will be gone forever." Jordan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the sunrise beginning to lighten the sky. "Maria, 30 years ago you taught me that privacy isn't worth much if you're not using your influence to help people. My father would be proud that I'm finally ready to let the world see who I really am." "And who are you really, Miko?" Jordan smiled, and for the first time since Marcus had met him, he looked completely at peace. "I'm someone who learned that greatness isn't about what you achieve for yourself. It's about what you inspire others to achieve for each other." Maria was crying again, but her voice sounded stronger. "Michael, there's something else I need to tell you." "What?" "Yesterday, while you were deciding, I made some phone calls to Isabella, to Tommy, to Dr. Kim, to some of the arena workers who run morning letter circles." Jordan sat back down. "What did you tell them?" "I told them about the foundation plan. I asked if they would help you build it." "And?" "They all said yes, Michael. Isabella wants to train community leaders in business development. Tommy wants to teach people how to organize neighborhood support groups. Dr. Kim wants to help with the psychological research." Jordan was quiet, processing this. "And the arena workers? Carlos in Los Angeles, Janet in Detroit, Roberto in Phoenix. They're all willing to become regional coordinators for the foundation." Marcus watched Jordan's expression change from surprise to amazement to gratitude. "So you're telling me I won't be building this alone?" "No, mijo. You'll be building it with all the people your morning letters helped over the past 30 years. The Anonymous Angel Network is ready to become the Morning Foundation." Jordan put his head in his hands, overwhelmed by the generosity of people he had helped decades earlier. "Maria, how do I thank you for 30 years of 4:30 a.m. conversations? How do I thank you for showing me what my life could become?" "You don't thank me, Michael. You honor what we built together by sharing it with the world." The phone line was quiet for a moment. "Maria, will you do something for me?" Anything. Will you help me make one more morning call? I want to call Marcus's editor at ESPN and tell her that she's about to get the story of a lifetime. Marcus's eyes widened. Jordan was ready to go public with everything. And then, Jordan continued, I want to call a press conference for next week. I want to announce the Morning Foundation and tell the world about the power of morning letters. Are you absolutely certain, Miko? Jordan looked at Marcus, then at the photos of Maria's family covering the walls, then out the window at the Chicago neighborhood where he had bought a house for a janitor who became his closest advisor. Maria, 30 years ago you told me that some people are put on this earth to do more than just succeed for themselves. Today I finally understand what you meant. And what did I mean? That my morning routine was never really about me. It was about learning to see the world through other people's eyes so I could help make their world better. Sigh, Miho, that's exactly what I meant. Then yes, I'm certain. Let's change the world, one morning letter at a time. As the sun rose over Chicago, Marcus realized he was witnessing not just the end of Michael Jordan's secret morning routine, but the beginning of something that could help millions of people believe in goodness again. From anonymous letters in 1991 to daily phone calls that continue today, Jordan's 4:30 a.m. habit shows us that real greatness isn't just about winning championships or making money. It's about lifting others up when nobody's watching. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. If this story inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories like this one. We share incredible tales about famous people, hidden histories, and the power of human kindness. And here's something Jordan himself would appreciate. Share this video with your friends and family. Spread the message that small acts of kindness can create ripples that change the world. Just like Jordan's morning letters, you never know how your simple act of sharing might inspire someone else to believe in goodness again. Remember, every morning is a chance to start fresh and help others. What will you do with your 4:30 a.m.? Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next story.